Okay, I've got all my papers cut down, and the first thing I'm going to do is take the one that is on the little bit heavier weight paper, and I'm going to move it aside for the time being. I'll be using that a little later. So then what I need to do is I need to choose 2 papers for my front and back cover, and then 2 more papers for my inside front and inside back covers, and then 1 paper to make an envelope. So I'd already kind of looked through them a little bit, and this one is probably the least directional, so I think I will use that one for my envelope. Then I really like the bumblebees. And I like that one. These would probably, they're going to be covered somewhat with pockets and stuff. So those probably would be good for the inside front and back cover. Which leaves these 2 for the front and back cover. And I think I'm going to put the bumblebees on the front cover, which will leave that one for the back cover. So, okay. Now I want to get them lined up so I know which way is which. Okay, situated like this. If I put them just like that, and then they were folded, that would make that the front cover, and then that the back cover. Okay, so then, I don't know that it really matters on this one. We'll just put one as the front and one as the back. Okay. So now I'm going to set these aside for just a minute, and I'm going to go ahead and make my envelope. And I will be using my We Are Memory Keepers envelope punch board, and I will be making an envelope that holds a 4x6 card. So I'll be cutting my paper down to 8 1/4 by 8 1/4, and then I'm going to punch it out. Again, I'm going to pause the video so you don't have to watch me do that. Okay, I've got my envelope made, and there it is. I did, on this flap, instead of leaving it like that, I just made a mark before I glued it. I made a mark on this and then just cut it so it would match up like that. Okay. The other thing I meant to tell you was, after I cut my papers down, cut the borders off, my papers ended up being 8 1/4 inches wide by 10 3/4 inches long. It really doesn't matter because you could do this in any size you wanted, but wanted to let you know that. So when I cut this down for my envelope, I didn't have to cut anything off the width, but I did have to cut, it's the difference between 8 1/4 and 10 3/4, 2.5 inches off one end. And I'm saving this strip. I'll be using part of that later. Okay. So my envelope is done, so I can set that aside for now. The next thing I want to do is I want to make the spine, I'm calling it a spine in quotes, for my front and back cover. So my spine will be here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my pages together back to back. And I'm going to grab my scoreboard. And I'm putting mine in upside down because it's easier for me to work on the open end than to try to work over here. And I am going to score at ½ inch. So my paper's 8 1/4 wide, so I'm going to back up to 7 3/4. So both of my papers will be scored at ½ inch. Now I'm going to take my, since I've got my scoreboard out, I'm going to take my inside front and back covers, and these, okay, if this is going to be my inside front and this is going to be my inside back, these I will want to put facing each other, and I'm going to want to score this edge. So again, ½ inch. Oop, jumped. I jumped. All right. Now I can put my scoreboard away. And the only reason I'm scoring them is to give myself some markers. Okay. I'll leave them this way so we can see what I'm working on. All right. So now I've got the score lines that I can help line up my papers with. So basically I'm going to be overlapping my papers by ½ inch. And there are a couple of ways you can do this. I'm going to use I've got some 3/8 inch score tape. And that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to try to place it in the center between the edge and my score line. And I don't necessarily need it to go completely to the top or completely to the bottom. In fact, probably I should have left a little more because I'm going to be sewing around this, and so now my needle's going to have to go through a little bit of tape. But that's all right. I will survive. I'm going to fold that so I can see it a little better. And I want to get these lined up as well as I can. Having trouble seeing my score line. All right. And I'm going to try like the devil to hold this. And pull up a little bit of my tape. I've shifted. All right. I've shifted a little bit. And because this is copy paper, it's not going to be real forgiving. But that's okay. I can still make it work. Nope, don't want to fold that yet. All right. I'm going to do a similar thing. Oh. Well, part of my problem could be I'm not folding on the score line. All right, that's my back cover, my front cover. And you just have to decide which one you want overlapping. It doesn't really matter. The other thing you could do is you could use a wet glue, which I'll do on this one. Yesterday I made one using the tape and then another one using glue. Of course, yesterday I got the tape lined up much easier. But the nice thing about the wet glue is, and notice I'm actually using a wet glue, not my art glitter glue. The nice thing about using a wet glue is you get a little second to kind of move and adjust things. Where with the tape and the art glitter glue, you don't have as much wiggle room. Okay. But the idea is just to create that half-inch overlapping spine. Then, while that's setting up for a moment, we will take our heavier weight paper. And I am going to cut it. I'm going to cut strips at 3 1/4 inches. I cut 1, 2, 3. And again, this little piece I'm going to hang on to for now. Okay. So my front and back cover can sit over here for a second and dry. Now I'm going to take my strips. I'll need to cut them down a little more. And I am going to, I'm actually going to want to cut them down because I don't want them to interfere with my spine. I'm going to cut mine down to 7 1/4 inches wide. Or thereabouts. My 7 1/4 is right at the arm of this fold out, so it's, now these I'm hanging on to as well for the time being. Okay. So now I'm going to put a pocket here. And a pocket here. And a pocket here. And I'm going to I'm gonna use my art glitter glue. I'm not putting much glue down though. I just want it to hold in place. Now, if you're not going to be, and the reason I'm not using much and I'm just using enough to hold it in place is I'm going to be sewing around mine. If you're not going to be sewing around yours, go ahead and glue your pockets down. And I want it to be close to the edge so that I be sure it gets it there. And I'm not measuring where I place my pockets. I just want to have a little room above my pocket, or between the pocket and the top. And these two I'm just putting near the bottom. All right, so again, I want this close to the edge, and I am trying to get my pockets somewhat lined up, but I'm not overly concerned about it. That one I don't think got real straight. Okay, now what I'm going to do, and you don't have to do the sewing, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to sew this edge, the inside edges of my pocket, and then I'm going to sew across the bottom of this one. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew around the entire perimeter of my inside pages. I'm back and I did my sewing. I lied a little bit about what I was going to be sewing. I did not sew all the way around the border yet. I just sewed the inside of each of the pockets and the bottom of this one. The rest of it I want to sew around to attach my front and back covers. So, now what I'm going to do is I do not want to completely attach. I could just glue these front papers down and have it become one thing, but I really don't want to do that because I'll be using these to send some happy mail in. And these papers are wonderful collage papers. And I want as much of it. I know I've done some sewing and gluing and cutting here, but it could still honestly be taken apart, just tear the stitching out, and you've got some beautiful collage papers. So I don't want to, and I don't know if anybody would want to do that or not, but I at least want it to be, I want it to be an option. Okay. Now the inside is where I didn't get it lined up great with the tape. So I want to, I may have to do some trimming or I may just leave it. But what I want to do is I'm going to use my again, I'm going to use a little bit of wet glue in case I need a little bit of adjusting time. And I just want a little glue up near the corners. Maybe not right where I'm going to be sewing, but just to hold my papers in place while I'm sewing. Okay, and I got the front lined up. The back isn't going to line up exactly because of where I got off with my taping. But I'd rather that be on the back than on the front. Okay. And I think I will wait until after I've sewn to do any trimming that I might want to do. And again, after I sew it, yes, it's going to be there and be visible, but it may not matter as much. So now I'm going to go back to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew all the way around. Okay, I've got my entire thing sewn around, my entire folio, and I am now going to, I think I've decided maybe to trim it a little bit, at least right here. Just going to take my scissors. Trim that edge a little bit. If I were distressing, I could cover that, but I don't want to distress this because, like I said, if somebody wanted to take this apart to use these papers as collage papers, I don't want to have put my choice of distress colors on it. So I'm just going to lightly cover some of my mistakes. And notice you do have the spine there. And if you wanted to, depending on how you're using this, you could leave that. For my purposes, I'm not going to. I'm going to take it and gently come in. Try to gently come in. And I'm just going to bend it right down the center. Or crease it right down the center. And I'll use my bone folder. And there you've got a very simple folio. So now I want to, I'm going to put my envelope right there. Before I do that though, I want to do two things. I want a closure on my envelope, so I'm going to take that was cut off from the envelope, and because it's just copy paper and my hole punch doesn't like copy paper real well, I'm going to fold it in half. Cut it that way. It does better with two pieces of paper, and even at that, of course, it could be that I need to sharpen my hole punch. Okay. I'm just going to glue the two together. I'm going to use this as a little tuck for my envelope closure, so that just makes it a little thicker. And just put a little bit of glue right here at the bottom of it. And now the envelope has a little closure on it. I could scoop that up a hair shade. There we go. Just a simple little closure for the flap. Then the other thing I want to do is, this is part of the strip left from the thicker paper that I made the pockets from. I'm going to cut this strip at 6 inches. It is how wide? About 1 inch wide. And I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to make a hinge for my envelope. And again, you don't have to do this if you wanted to put an envelope in, but just wanted to glue it down, you could. I will be putting bits of like little die cuts and stuff in the envelope, and sometimes it can be easier to reach your hand into if you can move it around a little bit. So score that. Plus, again, if someone wanted to take the envelope off to use for another purpose, they could do that very easily. Oh. Put that roughly in the center. Okay. Need to move my art glitter glue pen or I will lose it. So I'm going to put glue on this side. All right, so now that's ready to be filled. Then I'm going to take, I had these 3 little strips left over from when I did the pockets and I made them a little shorter. I had these 3 strips left over, so I'm going to take 2 of them and put right there. Basically sort of a double belly band type thing. There's one. Make sure my pocket doesn't get glued down. And there's 2. And then what I do, or what I will do, like with my other one, here I just put a couple of napkins here. I used the double belly bands to hold some lace and ribbon. Got some playing cards up in here. Then here I've got some papers and fabric. And then die cuts in my envelope. And I haven't figured out what else I may want to put in there. But then I could very easily send that out in Happy Mail. It will slide right into a 9x12 envelope. And that's how I'll be using this. But this would be a neat little idea just for a simple little gift or something. I love the way it looks. And I like the fact that my paper is not glued down all the way, it makes it makes it feel almost a little poofy. And I really like it. So there you go. There's my happy folio. So I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you think. And be safe, stay healthy, and happy crafting, everyone. Bye-bye.